Hello and welcome to another video and podcast from Fantasy Football Scout. Today it's all about Sky Sports Fantasy Football, £50,000 up for grabs for the winner. We have lots and lots of data. No, we don't really. I was about to say we have loads of data about all the fixtures that are going to happen in December and January, but as of recording, we don't. Are we going to get any of those news later this week?
God knows. I mean, everyone's really anxious about this because we were kind of promised that we were going to get the whole month, weren't we? And even maybe January as well. I think they sort of said December and January would just all come out like old school, a whole blanket of the whole fixtures, and still nowhere to be seen. So I guess it's just a waiting game, which is really frustrating. But,
Yes, well, I'll keep that intro in for the next one, and we can say we've got lots of information about the fixtures, and then eventually we're about to give that, which would be great. By the way, my name's Joe, and joining me is Luke. So, Luke, before we come on to those bonus points, Stars, I understand your game week wasn't as successful as you would have hoped because of a couple of players.
yeah, that's putting it lightly. Yeah, my team wasn't overall too bad, but basically the two sort of very popular picks that were also, I mean, they were great picks and had great captain days, both really hurt me, and that was Bruno Fernandes and Calvert-Lewin, which hurt a lot more so. Reason being is I have Chilwell, which I captained on the same day as Bruno, and Chilwell got 9 points, whereas Bruno got 11. So that's no great shakes, really. Obviously, I'd love to have Bruno on my team anyway, but that wasn't too bad. But when it came to the Everton game, I had James Rodriguez captain, which is obviously far and away behind what Calvert-Lewin was able to achieve. And I think myself and quite a few people early on in the season, and even at the overhaul period, which is where we probably had to make the decision, decided that James was the better route to go because it covers Everton and you don't take up a striker spot, which are obviously primed. Can Calvert-Lewin carry it on? That was just a flat-out mistake. You know, James Rodriguez, there was a little talk of, and we even talked about it ourselves, you know, he had got some massive hauls, but he'd also got two pointers in the first 4 weeks. So we knew he was a feast or famine kind of player. But now when you look back at all of his points, I mean, he's had an injury as well, but he's basically hauled twice in two separate games. And the rest of the time, it's been sort of 2 or 4 points every single time. So it's a problem for me because Calvert-Lewin is just, you know, he's over 9 points every single game. So it's a problem that I didn't want to have to deal with, but probably am going to have to at some point. So yeah, with no fixtures, it's kind of, when do you do that again this week? Everton are at home to Leeds, which is a good game on paper, and it just feels like, although I'd much prefer Calvert-Lewin, if you were to take James Rodriguez out and do it, it just feels like sod's law that it could affect you. I'd rather wait for some fixture opportunities or something. Not that you'll ever get them switching from an Everton to an Everton, but there might be a daisy chain somewhere along the line, if you know what I mean. So,
Well, it goes back to the intro that we all hoped we could do about the fixtures. If we can get those December and January fixtures, you might better see an opening there to move Rodriguez on. For pre-overhaul and post-overhaul, I went for Calvert-Lewin over Rodriguez, and that's just one of those 50-50 calls, isn't it? Sometimes it goes right, sometimes it doesn't. And Rodriguez so easily could have completely outscored him over these fixtures. Just hasn't been the case. Obviously I'm quite
it was a decision based on, there's loads of really good forwards and there isn't that many good midfielders, and I need to cover Everton. So it felt, I knew already he was the second worst option, but it felt like a worthwhile sacrifice. But it's just not proved to be.
Well, he was looking great early on, wasn't he?
He definitely was, yeah. But Calvert-Lewin's just something else, isn't he? I think he's. I mean, unfortunately, I know the fixtures are obviously changing, and Salah's obviously had COVID. Kane's got some bad fixtures, but that front line of Kane, Salah, Calvert-Lewin just looks so dependable every single week, and it's hard to move away from them because a lot of us set up with the idea of transferring these sort of big hitters for captain days and sort of benefiting. But every time you consider that, they just remind you how good they are, which is really frustrating.
Yeah, it
but
is.
Good at the same time.
It is. So what we're going to do here, we're going to look ahead to game week 12 in Sky. It's very different to FPL for those people getting confused. We often get comments on YouTube saying, why are you saying game week 11, game week 12 and so on, which is always a couple in advance of FPL. It's because they count in Sky those blank fixtures and international breaks as a game week. It's like a fallow game week and then you move on. So yeah, we're in game week 12. So before we do that, I just wanted to have a look at some of the top bonus stars of the week, really, notable players that got those tier 2 and man of the match. So start with man of the match. Goalkeepers and defenders, I thought were the most interesting there. Leno, Johnston at West Brom, Ogbonna, as well as Calvert-Lewin, Kane, Adams, Abraham. So yeah, top goal scorers. They're going to attract the man of the match. But those goalkeepers and defenders were interesting. Jay Rodriguez, I'm not sure people are going to be really considering him. And Solly March, my favourite at Brighton, is doing well. And this is interesting though. Jota at 9.1 million. Now, I looked at that price, 9.1 million, and I thought, I'm not sure in and out of the Liverpool side, but it could actually be worth it. And for those that have moved off Salah and can't perhaps afford to get him back in now, Jota, if he's picking up goals, assists, man of the match and starting, could be a viable option. But yeah, what do you think of some of those man of the matches? And in particular, can Jota cover Salah?
Well, the Jota thing, I mean, he's obviously fantastic. I think he's a great option in all fantasy games at the moment. He's a striker in our game, isn't he? And that's. I mean, with the price squeezing, it's kind of like Salah and Jota. There's only a few million in it, really, and it's like, if you don't have the money, I can completely see it. But given the choice, you're always going to pick Salah. So he's kind of in a difficult position, I think. However, if he was looking to double up, I wouldn't argue. I think Salah and Jota together is perfectly viable. Mm-hmm. If he continues in the same vein, he's going to end up one of the highest scorers in the points in the league, isn't he? That's the fact at the moment. It's just whether he can keep in the team, and if he can, I don't see any reason why he can't, because we've seen it with, Mane and Salah did the same. Mane was much cheaper, playing virtually in the same sort of positions, and ended up being a premium these days when he never was to begin with. And if Jota carries on the same way, then it's going to be the same thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to him. It's just that with Salah, with penalties, he's just so warm and comfortable, and you just know he's gonna. Well, outside of COVID, he's gonna play, don't you? So it's a decision. I do like the double up. As for the other guys, Adams continues to be a great option. Very cheap. Is he 7.9, I think, or 8.2, something like that? I did have him in my team. He's very cheap. He's around the 8 million mark. And again, he proved quite a good captain option on Monday, because a lot of people wouldn't have had a captain. He got an assist and a man of the match. And Southampton continue to have these Friday and Monday games quite often. So he is very viable at that price as well. So I like him. And then obviously you've mentioned Calvert-Lewin and Kane, who just do not go away. Any of the other ones I think are just more flash in the pan. But yeah, Calvert-Lewin and Kane. These guys I've already mentioned, they just don't stop scoring.
Yeah, I know. So yeah, Jota, one to monitor there, potentially. Passing tier 2. I've only got one of these, and I wish I had some more. But our old friend Diaz is there, just gets on the pitch. Passing tier 2. Zuma, my man, there. Cancelo, and James at Chelsea. So yeah, Chelsea and City defence proving very valuable, ticking over nicely. You've got couple of them at least, haven't you? Or at least one?
No, I've only got one. I wish I had Zuma. I've got Chilwell, but he keeps getting. I mean, he got passing tier 2 tier 1. Sorry, this week. Not 2, but obviously he's got that added attacking threat. Although Zuma's obviously scored from headers, but moving forward, you would have thought Chilwell would probably have a better attacking threat. I mean, looking at those 4, you could quite easily have those 4 as your back 4, could you not? Diaz, Zuma, Cancelo, Reece James. I think that would be a fantastic back 4.
I think it would be. I wish I had the foresight of an overhaul to just do that, and then you can just chop and change around your premiums, and just keep those 4 there for the duration.
Yeah, Cancelo's almost another Jota, where we keep highlighting him. He keeps returning points, and he seems to have so many strings. He's got passes, he's got tackles, he's got attacking output, he's got great fixtures. He ticks all those boxes, but because he's a Man City, I mean, he's really a right back, isn't he? And he's playing at left back. It's always in the back of your mind that will go Pete Tong the moment you go there, and it's the same for James as well at right back, who, outside of, was it like one game, maybe 2 games he's got benched, and now he's just looked nailed pretty much since. It's just that whole feeling of I'll get him in and then it will change.
Yeah, no, he was benched in Europe. I think we're looking at James as the number 1 in the league. I mean, I think we've known that for a number of weeks now. Azpilicueta's the backup there. Cancelo, I mean, Zinchenko and Mendy are still hovering around, but Cancelo is the main man. Saves tier 2, Lloris, Schmeichel, McCarthy, Pope, Johnston again, and Fabianski. So yeah, Johnston owners did actually really well out of that, even though a lot of people were talking about Fernandes in that match. Johnston at West Brom. looking good. I mean, I've got Patricio, and I'm not seeing him. When I'm reading out these names each week, I'm not seeing him there.
Yeah, well, try having Guita. It's even worse.
And you got Guita, and other people have got Martinez, and we're only occasionally seeing Martinez there. So yes, I think we're starting to move into that sort of Pope time.
Yeah. This is a really funny one, actually. The goal. I mean, I've talked about this already. Actually, goalkeepers in Sky are a really key position, and getting it right saves you so many transfers.
Yeah.
They can score ridiculous points. You can either have, the top end like your Allisons who just score ridiculous amounts of clean sheets because you obviously get those extra 2 points for a clean sheet and they smash it. Or you can have these cheap guys that we've had in the past who just provide ridiculous value. And right now, it's not clear where to go for your goalkeeper still. And I think out of all of the options at the moment, McCarthy is probably the one who continues to put his hand up because he gets the saves.
Yeah.
Southampton get surprise clean sheets in all manner of games. He also plays quite often on the Friday and Mondays. So I think at the moment, if you were to ask me, he's probably the best. However, their fixtures start to fall off a cliff soon. So it's another tricky one where if you move to them, I don't think it's the best time to have done it. You might have just missed their point.
I think it's as we were saying, like with goalkeepers, it's best not to change. And that's why I think I'm just stuck with Patricio because, as you said, if I go in for McCarthy, that's the end of McCarthy's points.
Yeah, I think if it was if there was some sort of wild card or something that was happening now, it would either be McCarthy, Schmeichel maybe, Pope for all dependable, just the king of the single match day. There is no one else better at the single match day. Again, if you'd have captained Pope for the Burnley game rather than a Palace player, you're absolutely laughing.
Yeah.
He seems to do it every season. He didn't start the season great, so people sort of turned the nose up, but he was the standout goalkeeper at that price before we kicked a ball, I thought. So yeah, or Mendy is probably the other one for Chelsea because he's 7 million is cheap for a top goalkeeper, isn't it? So it's still not clear, but those will probably be my picks.
Let's move on to tackles tier 2. Bertrand, who was in my pre-overhaul side, and I sort of wish I still had him. Aurier, Alioski, and Højbjerg. Højbjerg just ticking along quite nicely. I think owners can be pretty satisfied having him. He's filling that position, that sort of enabler type role really well in midfield. If you've got a spot, he looks good. And I think the fact he's got bad fixtures is actually in his favour. So he was against City, tackles tier 2. He's got Chelsea next. He's got all sorts of bad fixtures over the next 4 or 5. He's got Arsenal as well. I think Liverpool in that. I can see more tackles for Højbjerg.
Yeah. He's definitely one of those players we've talked about in the past that if you go for him and you decide to go that route, you kind of have to see out the season for it to see their value. You just leave them in. If you start chopping and changing at that price bracket, then you're never going to be happy because you see 1 week when he just misses out on bonus and he gets 2 points, and maybe he does it 2 weeks in a row and he starts to get twitchy, but then he'll just come back with passing and tackles in another 2 after that. So you just got to leave him in if you're going to get him.
That is actually the tale of my season so far. I have one spot in my team. I mean, I've done well with a lot of the players, but the Antonio / Bowen and now Van Aanholt position is a revolving position of awfulness.
A revolving wheel of shiteness.
total mare crapness. So I'm going to have a little think about that when I need to move Van Aanholt on and settle on something like a Romeo or Højbjerg or someone, just a tough tackling, slick passing, cheap player, and just stick with them. Well, that's something for a future video and podcast. Shots tier 2, familiar suspects there. Calvert-Lewin, Jota we've already mentioned. Mane. Now, we've mentioned him a couple of times here with tier 2, and so I'm starting to think Mane can cover Salah. I know Salah has the penalties, but if Mane is getting those little extra points here and there, makes me think, if those that have moved off Salah and can perhaps only now afford Mane in, that's an option, I think. Firmino there, I'm not interested in Firmino.
No.
And Wood there, I'm not interested in Chris Wood either.
No, not particularly.
No. So let's move on to your team. We'll see how you did and what your sort of plans are. You've got Guita there in goal in a 4-4-2. Chilwell, Dallas, Gabriel, Diaz, and then you've got De Bruyne, Barnes, Grealish, Rodriguez, and up front Kane and Salah. That's looking pretty good for this week, although I guess you don't have Vardy. You've got Barnes instead of Vardy, and
no Bruno.
And
no Calvert-Lewin.
And no Bruno. And actually, it's looking
it's looking dreadful, Jeff.
I was trying to be kind. No, I think Guita's fine. I mean, I've got Van Aanholt there because Zaha was out. He's not going to be in a lot of teams, and perhaps we wouldn't get him in for one. So I think that's fine. You've got coverage there for that Newcastle Palace game coming up. But yeah, what are you planning? I mean, there's nothing really wrong with the players you've got though. They're all good players.
And yeah, this is the thing. It's so easy to react to the week just gone. I mean, Barnes just hit a double-digit haul the week before, and he had shots on target again in his last game. I can't then move him out home to Fulham, can I? I mean, if he doesn't play, luckily I think we get to see the lineups on that one, and he has been getting benched occasionally because he has been actually playing quite iffy. I think not great for him. He's been benched for Partey a few times, and I think Leicester fans have been saying Partey deserves to start at the moment because he's playing better. So I'm nervous about that game. However, I will be able to react to it. But I'm not going to transfer him out ahead of Fulham because that strikes me as the kind of game where he could hit a hat-trick because it's Fulham and he shoots a lot. So it's no more in-depth than that, really. I mean, with no fixtures, I kind of have this plan of I'm just going to bury my head in the sand, hope that Bruno doesn't do anything, hope that Rodriguez can match or better Calvert-Lewin. I mean, these things are in hope. I don't expect them to happen. Salah comes back and he plays for Brighton. Maybe people haven't got him. I'm basically burying my head in the sand, just hoping all this happens. And then when I've got the fixtures, I can react. Because if I react now for this game week and then the fixtures come out and I want to do different things, suddenly I've wasted a load of swaps, potentially. So I'm just going to have to take it on the chin, I think, this week. I mean, the players I'm not particularly happy with are basically Barnes, James Rodriguez. Those two definitely I'm not particularly happy with. I need to work out how to get Bruno or Calvert-Lewin or both into my team. And to do so, I've looked at it, I would have to probably do Chilwell to Zuma, which again just feels wrong, although, it's shaving some money off for close to the same player, but it feels like a vanity move that you don't really want to waste. And then the other one is Gabriel that I'm just keeping an eye on because although he did well this week, they actually switched to a back four. Yeah. And I think he only made 30 passes or something like that. So it depends how Arsenal are going to set up moving forward. If it is going to be a back four and he's not going to get passes, suddenly I'm not particularly interested in him, having only just bought him in, which is kind of frustrating. So he's one to monitor as well, and he could be a make weight. For example, I could do Gabriel down to a cheaper defender. There's the likes of Kilman and people like that who just play every week. At the moment, it seems just so cheap, and then that gives me the money to do some of those moves I talked about. I could instantly do James Rodriguez to Calvert-Lewin, for example. I could do Bruno Fernandes in. So, yeah, I mean, also Kevin De Bruyne's basically been my player that a lot of people don't have, and he's been very, very disappointing as a premium. However, I can't sell him ahead of these games, can I? I just can't see how I can.
No, I think, the theory with De Bruyne in all formats is that City's fixtures get so good from Burnley. Their track record against Burnley at home is so good. De Bruyne's underlying stats are still ticking along quite nicely. Separately to, this counts as well for Sky. I have the goals imminent table, which is often used by FPL managers, but it applies to Sky as well, and he's on that. So De Bruyne is due. He should have scored. Last couple of matches I've seen, he could have easily come away with a double-digit haul, but he didn't. But we shall see. And we've seen what he can do. He's got that broad mix. So yeah, De Bruyne is not going anywhere. Definitely, he's a great captaincy shout. I guess we're going to find out. Their fixtures are good for another month or two, really.
At least... I don't have any doubt he does come good. But when you've got someone like Diaz, who will equally probably get 10 points in all those games, we're back to the old Van Dijk versus Salah option we had in the past, where Van Dijk would often be better. Yeah. And it's one to monitor, I think, because if Man City are going to continue, I don't expect they will, but let's say they do continue to churn out these 1-0 or low-scoring victories, suddenly there's your money for Bruno Fernandes and Calvert-Lewin and whoever else you want. I just get rid of De Bruyne. But it's like the timing is just terrible for me. All the moves that I want to do, the fixtures don't suggest they are good moves to do right now. So that's why I'm just going to do nothing.
Yeah, I'll put my team up here because it's different, but there's a similar ethos to it. So I've had a flurry, well for me a flurry of 2 transfers last weekend. So I'm down to 35 transfers now. So I was, 34, sorry. I was at 36. So I thought I can spare a bit. So I've shot up into the top 3K with a biggie 98 point game week.
Lovely.
So that's one of those ones. But that shows with Calvert-Lewin and Fernandes there. So I've got currently I've got a 4-3-3 of Patricio, Van Aanholt, Zuma, Dallas, White. So a lot of enablers there. And then De Bruyne, Grealish, Fernandes, Kane, Vardy and Calvert-Lewin. So what I did is I moved Bowen out to Van Aanholt. My theory there is I would get 2 captaincy days out of Van Aanholt. And it didn't do it for me last time. I'm more hopeful against Newcastle. A clean sheet, a goal even, anything would be good. I think in that match. There's going to be a few possibly... there's going to be, I don't know, a few with Newcastle defenders. You never know. You never know what. If Zaha's not playing, Palace's attack looks a bit toothless. The other move I made was Salah out to Vardy. If I had have got Zaha in for Bowen, it would have left me short to get Salah back in at some point. So at the moment, I'm going to go into the next few fixtures Salahless and Vardy'd up. And then my move will be Vardy back to Salah, probably. But there is the option of Mane, but probably Vardy back to Salah.
Or you could even do Kane to Salah, can't you?
Or
if
Kane,
the fixtures just seem to hurt Spurs, which people think they might.
Or Kane to Salah, exactly. So I've got those options there. And Van Aanholt, I'm not sure about. Obviously, I've got White there. I've got Dallas and Zuma. I don't really want to go cheaper than that. I don't want too many neighbours. I'd love to get Diaz in. But I don't want. I'm not getting rid of KDB. I'm not getting rid of Grealish. Not getting rid of Fernandes. Calvert-Lewin stays. So there's not a lot of wiggle room there. But
can you afford, for example, Van Aanholt to Cancelo, who's not as expensive, and then have some money still to get Salah?
I don't know what the price of Cancelo is, so it's not something I particularly looked at. Because I sort of had that mentality that you've got as well, as in we don't know. I'm waiting for those fixtures to come out. So I don't want to use my transfers if I can't really eke out, the maximum, potential I can possibly get for those transfers.
He's 8.2 million, which is very cheap.
Is he?
I think. Yeah.
Well,
it's cheaper than Grealish.
This is going to be fascinating for the viewers and listeners. Live on air, I will quickly see with Vardy for Salah. That leaves me with 8.7. The answer is yes. Cancelo looks like the player I'm going to get in then. And maybe I've found a use for that role, which has been held by lots of useless players.
Watch him get benched instantly for Zinchenko as soon as he's in. He's 1% owned, by the way, overall 1.1% and 2.6 in the top 1K. But he's offering great value. And I can read you his last 5 scores. 8 points, 8 points, 12 points, and then 4 and 4 and those were when we lost, obviously, or they conceded goals. So that's a pretty good sign.
This is why I do this video and podcast with you, because I wasn't actually thinking of that at all, and you've given me an idea, and that's a really great idea. The other one is if Antonio becomes Super Antonio again.
Yeah, we're big fans here.
Then that's easy. Van Aanholt to Antonio, done. So I've got 2 options there now. It's possible that Cancelo will get that as well, but yeah, definitely I'm looking for Salah back in at some point. I don't like to go, especially with no Van Dijk. I'm not really interested in Liverpool defence at the moment. So yeah, some options. Let's have a look at the fixtures, because this will give us some idea of what we're doing with our captaincies. So let's start. We've got this single game day. So we just had another, like a double game day with Palace involved on the Monday. Palace against Newcastle Friday. So you got Guita, I got Van Aanholt. Easy decision.
Already collecting my 2 points. Newcastle, a team that cannot score seemingly and don't have their top goal scorer potentially. You would expect it's as close to nailed as a clean sheet that can happen. However, Palace seem to find a way to concede a goal. They've got 1 clean sheet all season, despite having that appearance of being quite a sound defensive team. It's not really the case.
Yeah, so we've got some questions going to come up in our community questions bit about what you do if you have Zaha still. So yeah, I mean, obviously you just got to hope, but I wouldn't be. Well, we'll talk about it a bit later. But I personally wouldn't be looking to now get a a Palace or a Newcastle option. And if you haven't got any coverage, just let it go. I mean, 2 games on a risky player, fair enough. 1 game, there's probably better uses of transfers.
Yeah, we may as well just address it now. I mean, absolutely no chance for me. I would never bring anyone in for this game because ultimately, there could be a player let's say a player does score a 30-point haul in that game. First of all, no one can tell me really who it is. Probably Patrick Van Aanholt's probably got the best chance out of all of them. And he's so lowly owned that it's never going to hurt you. It's never going to be a problem. They're like 1-2% owned players, so just forget it and move on.
Yeah, definitely. Moving on to the Saturday. Well, this looks a bit better. So Brighton against Liverpool, City against Burnley, Everton against Leeds, and then West Brom against Sheffield United. So those first 3 matches, there's all sorts you could go for. You've got so you're going for De Bruyne.
It's probably going to be De Bruyne at home to Burnley. We've talked about it. I mean, that game. Forget this season. Go back in the past. Off of Kevin De Bruyne historically, Man City historically. It just looks like a gold mine potential game.
Yeah.
The concerning thing is Man City's form, but I just think that's too good of an opportunity. Right, the fixtures breed form most of the time, and I can't see how that's not going to end up in them winning and Kevin De Bruyne doing well.
So I feel. I mean, De Bruyne was well owned. He'll be well captained. This is why I feel slightly better about being Salah-less going into this game. So Liverpool against Brighton. It's a great game for Salah. But whilst he will be captained, I think De Bruyne. He certainly gets my vote. Calvert-Lewin is another potential for me against Leeds, but I'm not sure if you can compared to the potential for De Bruyne. That's what you're going for at the moment, potential. So let's move.
To be honest, if I had Calvert-Lewin and Kevin De Bruyne, I would be tempted by that Calvert-Lewin one, wouldn't you? I mean, you have both those, don't you?
I do, but I think I'm going to go with De Bruyne that day because the way Leeds are setting up when they have Phillips back, they are a better defensive unit, and whilst I think both Leeds and Everton will score, I don't know whether it's going to be a lot. And we saw what Leeds did with Arsenal. Now Arsenal, with Aubameyang up front, couldn't quite. They were still quite defensively sound there. Yes, I do think Calvert-Lewin will get points, but I just think in terms of potential, De Bruyne. This looks like a De Bruyne match to me. De Bruyne captain, but
the thing is, it's like Bruno, isn't it? So many strings to the bow. If they both fail, Calvert-Lewin might get shots, but De Bruyne might get passes, shots, tackles, everything. That's the thing, I suppose.
Moving on to Sunday, we got Southampton against Fernandes, who is my captain. Full stop. Chelsea against Tottenham. That's hard to call. Arsenal against Wolves. Out of all of those, who are you going for that day then? Because you with Fernandes.
Well, this is the problem. It's part of the frustration of not having the fixtures. Is it really should I just try and get Bruno Fernandes in now? But that's going to cost me. I can't do it in one swap unless I was to get rid of someone like De Bruyne, which just seems utter madness, even after he's played. So I think I'm going to have to hope Southampton do a Southampton and basically look the better team and look incredible, which they can do.
Yes.
So I'm hoping so. And Chelsea Spurs is so hard to call. I've got Kane and I've got Chilwell. To be honest, I like both of those as an option, but not which way it goes, I'm not sure. And then I've got a really sturdy pick, I guess, in Arsenal at home to Wolves, because both these teams don't really create chances. They're very close to 0-0s all the time, or so. It feels like that could be a 0-0, but then I just said about if Arsenal have gone to a back 4 and Gabriel's not going to get passes, and then they concede 1 goal, suddenly it's a 2-pointer captain to 4, isn't it? So I've got decisions on that day, and I honestly don't know. I think I may just end up going Kane, just because it's Kane, and I can hope he gets a penalty or an assist. I think he's going to score.
I'm certainly keeping hold of him at the moment. I don't mind these fixtures for Kane. I think they're good. Son, I'm not sure about at the moment with these fixtures, but I think Kane's a good captaincy shout there. Then moving on to Monday, we've got Leicester against Fulham, and then West Ham against Aston Villa. So for me, Jamie Vardy is what I got him in for. I got him in for a bit of a cheeky extra game with Liverpool against Liverpool. Got him in for this really, and He is as I was pointing out the Scoutcast this week, he is a Sheffield Wednesday fan who takes on Sheffield United soon as well. So I want to keep him for that. Yeah, I mean, you've got Barnes. I mean, I think you're going to get points there, isn't he? Because he gets those shots on. If he's starting, what are you going to do if he doesn't start? Because there'll be other Barnes owners out there. What would you do? You see he's not starting. What do you do?
Well, I'll be switching to Antonio, assuming Antonio's back, because they play at 8 o'clock. I won't get to see the team lineups, but hopefully we'll get some sort of news from Moyes beforehand, either tomorrow or whenever they have their press conference saying Antonio's back. Then if I see Barnes isn't playing, I'm just going to go straight for Antonio and captain him, or I'll just stick the captain on Grealish. I never think that's a bad idea. No. But the thing is, that Leicester Fulham game, it's just got, out of all the games for potential this season, that looks like one where Vardy could hit 4 or 5 goals, doesn't it? Legitimately, it looks like he could get that. I mean, considering he can score 3 goals in a game where he doesn't even have a shot because of penalties and stuff, it's a real worry not having him on that day. So I may change my tune when we get to that day and just think I'm just going to have to get him in.
Yeah, I mean, then we had some stats on the Scoutcast this week. I mean, it's across all formats really. He's got, his expected goal involvement. He's actually top of all players this season. So I know a lot of people say, without penalties, he's nothing. But he's on penalties and they get penalties. So that has to be counted for. And in terms of expected to be involved in a goal, Jamie Vardy is top. Second is Kane. So that is an option. Kane to Vardy possibly would be an option there. But yeah, as I said, I think Kane's still good at the moment. Let's move on to some community questions. These are some of the Zaha ones. We pretty much covered them off, but we'll mention them anyway. Dan McKenna, if you have Zaha and no cover for next Friday, do you transfer him out for another, or just accept you've got no Friday captain? I think we've answered that. Just accept it. Accept your lot, I think. Move on.
Yeah, look to Diaz or Cancelo if you can go to a defender maybe, or look to Antonio for if he's back for the Villa game, or even Vardy, someone like that. Yeah. That's what
Jason Jones asked a pretty similar question. Is it best to swerve Palace Newcastle with no cover at this stage? Yeah, so if you're totally without at the moment, don't bother. Just let it go. You'll soon forget it. Lee Williams, Salah over KDB for Saturday captain. And also Sam asks, is Calvert-Lewin a better captaincy shout? So you've already mentioned about Calvert-Lewin being a good captaincy shout. I mean, Salah too. Yeah, Salah is a great captaincy shout against Brighton.
I honestly think if I had all three, and I would probably put it on Calvert-Lewin. It might be because I don't have him, and you always think that's why he's going to do better. But I just feel like he would probably be the best because he's so consistent. He gets 9 points every game, and he could get more against Leeds. We just don't know which version of Leeds will turn up. So yeah, I think I'd go him. As for the Salah one, I guess they're playing Atalanta, aren't they? And he might be starting in that game, so I guess you're going to have to kind of judge it on that to see how fit he is. For me, the Brighton game is, although I expect Salah, if he plays, will probably do it quite well. Playing your boys, they're just such a tough team sometimes. Yeah. They keep the ball a lot. It's not a great game, I don't think, for Salah, particularly in terms of just having loads and loads of chances. Brighton always find a way to give up a couple of goals, but I feel like it'll be more of a frustrating watch than watching Man City Burnley, where I expect they will be camped out in Burnley's penalty area for most of the game. So, you're probably going to get shots on target for Kevin De Bruyne and all sorts of things. So I'd probably go Calvert-Lewin, De Bruyne, then Salah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Salah's a good option, but the thing about Brighton, their defensive stats are so good, but if they're presented with a big chance, they will concede. As we saw against Villa, they did concede despite pretty much bossing the game because Villa were without Barkley as well, so they were muted in attack. But Brighton still managed. They should have been walking away with that with a clean sheet. They didn't. And now they're against Liverpool, so you're going to be like Mane, Salah, Firmino, Jota. No, they will definitely score against Brighton. But yeah, I don't know how many though.
None of those points should matter, normally, should it? At the end of the day, if you're not watching any of the games, you come back to the game and you see who scored some points and you go, lovely, thank you. And in that vein, Salah is a great pick. But I feel like for my sanity when watching the game sometimes, if Brighton are controlling the game, for example, Liverpool have just had a tiring game to Atalanta. They're having a game every 3 days. It's not the kind of game you want to play, I think, because Brighton are just a good team. So it could end up being a little bit frustrating. And for my sanity, I'd rather have De Bruyne camped out on the D of the penalty area, which I'm hoping is where he'll be.
There's a question from Auto Reclose, and Keith also asked it as well. What to do with Guaita after Friday? So you have Guaita. So what? Just going to keep hold of him?
delete my team.
Delete.
I don't know, to be honest. And it's, you touched on it, switching goalkeepers. I still don't really know which one I would even go for sure. And I don't have any fixtures. So my plan is, because luckily no one else is doing particularly well, is just to keep him. And then if those fixtures present an opportunity to me, I won't hesitate to make the switch, because I just don't want him long term really anymore. His fallback before in previous seasons is he'd make loads and loads of saves. You know, if they didn't keep a clean sheet, he would make loads of them and he would get those. But he's not been doing it this season, which is really strange. But he's just not.
Their defense has been better, so they're stopping players shoot. Which is
I mean, they've had Coyote at centre back, haven't they? And then they've had, obviously, Van Aanholt's been out. There's been injuries back there. So part of me thinks, well, will that change when they eventually get their full first choice back four? But I just can't see it at the moment. So, yeah, I'll look for opportunities when the fixtures come out. And if I can get McCarthy in, or an excuse to get him, that's where I might go. The other part of me just thinks I go as cheap as possible to allow further moves. So just go for Messier of Leeds, just because he's 6.1 million and he's the cheapest starting goalkeeper.
And they get clean sheets. And they get clean sheets occasionally.
I mean, if none of them are doing particularly well, then why not go for the cheapest is essentially the message there.
Yeah, I mean, I look at that with Guiton. I remember last season there was an opportunity occurred within the fixtures. Sheffield United, so this was with Henderson, was missing a game. So there was a blank game there for him. And meanwhile, Burnley's fixtures became better. So I made that swap, and a few people did. And as we were talking about earlier with Pope, Pope can be a very lucrative option because of those single game days and a great captaincy shout. So yeah, that's what I would be looking out for, and in fact I may well be with Patricio, if there is an option where you can go in and get Pope. I think I'm going to get more points that way. But yeah, as you said, there's definitely merit of going for the cheaper. So he's on to the next question really, from John, who's new to Sky, used to FPL. He's used to, in Fantasy Premier League, they have the blank fixtures and double game weeks as well. This is a good time to to use strategy to get a leg up in your mini leagues. But how is it different in Sky? Because we can shop and change throughout the week. There's no sort of linear game week as it were. So yeah, what's the strategy there?
Well, essentially we ignore all that because our game weeks are Thursday. Is it Thursday to Thursday? And they'll always be that way. So in some weeks, you might have 0 games in that Thursday to Thursday. You might have only 3, or you might have 24 or something ridiculous. So yeah, you kind of ignore it, but you do obviously look for what we've talked about all the time: these 2 for 1, 3 for 1, 4 for 1 scenarios, which aren't really independent of a game week. They're more just how many times will someone play before the next person plays, and it's much more simple in that way, I guess. Although hard to instantly notice unless you start putting together all sorts of spreadsheets, which is why there's loads of guys in the community who do so, and you should follow them. With the Planet Sky, I said last time, didn't I? At Planet Sky.
Yes.
Is a good person to follow for this sort of thing. So yeah, largely ignore the noise on that and just look for your guys who are going to play 3 games to someone else's 1. Yeah, that's my message there.
Definitely, that's probably going to come up in January, February time. We're going to start looking at
hopefully
those types of fixtures. So Benny Blanco asks, best way to protect rank at this stage of the season. I mean, my immediate thought of that is don't even look at your rank at this stage of the season unless you've only got like 5 transfers left or something, because we've got the people who are at the top have used a lot of transfers, and people in our situation we've used maybe 30, 35. We have 30 to 35 left. So it's each one of those, depending on how you use it for captaincy days, could be worth tens of thousands of rank places.
Yeah, I know why he's asking this, because he's actually doing very well. He's in, I think he's top 800 or something like that, maybe even higher than that, and has only used he's only got like 33 swaps left or something, so within the average of most of the top players. I mean, to me, it's you don't do anything different than what you're doing. Protecting rank is essentially the same as playing sensibly, which is captaining the best captain options, the most popular captain picks. And I think as long as you're doing that, you're striving to get that best captain and most popular one. You can't really go too far wrong, because how much can the other guys hurt you? Even if they're hitting 10, 15 point hauls, if they're not captained, it's not really that devastating, I think. we've seen this week. My team did okay all across the board, but because I didn't have Calvert-Lewin's 30-something points from his captain and Bruno's 20-something, that's 50 to 60 points right there that my team doesn't have and has to make up. And those are popular captain picks for good reasons, which I'm assuming he has because he's top 1,000. So keep doing what you're doing.
Yes, indeed. Well, thanks everyone for those questions there. Just before we go, I just want to mention the members area there. So that's where we got a lot of our stats from there. We're talking about expected goal involvement, something I've been looking at there. It's worth looking at those stats for the likes of Vardy and Kane as well. I think even with poor fixtures with Kane, he's still heavily involved and still likely to be as well. But for now, Luke, thanks so much for joining me, and good luck with your game week in Sky.
Same to you, Joe. See you on the next one.